Mayor Michael Hancock delivered his inauguration speech on Monday. Among the issues discussed were his plans to invest $15 million per year in affordable housing, job creation to help millennials moving to the city, and expanding access to alternative transportation. Patty, as we all know, inauguration speeches are built for things like this, grand plans and millions of dollars. But in this one's a little bit different because as mayor, Mayor Hancock has a lot of power. I mean, not all of these he can just do with a wave of magic wand, but he can get a lot of things done. Do you think this really spells out what he wants to do, or was just speech making?
I think both. I mean, he wants to do it. Who can live in the city and not want to do something to get affordable housing in so you can at least have the lowest level have some access to housing? I'd like to see the middle class have some access to housing because that is disappearing too, and affordable housing is not going to help them. There are two different things that can put the brakes on some of these plans. One is voters, and come November, we're going to have votes on the DIA, the development out by DIA plan and working with Adams County. We're going to have votes on the stock show. We may have votes on this college plan. And I don't know about you, but I feel an incredible discontent around town. People are mad that it's growing so fast without seeming to have any breaks or any oversight. I was talking to someone last night who is one of those people who's grown a business from the ground up, is hiring all those millennials. And he said, I don't mind it taking 3 times as long to get where I'm going in Denver, but I mind that I'm going over potholes while I'm doing it. And we've got a lot of infrastructure and issues we have to have fixed. So I think people are going to be really paying a close eye on that. And they may be they may be telling the mayor some things when they go vote in November.
That's a good point. Todd, do you think Mayor Hancock has the political capital to get some of these things done? I mean, while as the structure of city government says it's a strong mayor government, he has the right to do things, but does he have the political capital to get these things done?
On some of the smaller items that were brought up in that speech, definitely, but when it comes to that centerpiece item of the affordable housing, that's where it'll really come down to the details. I think the Denver Post had a really even-handed approach to it in an editorial that they brought up where they said a lot of these little taxes are starting to add up now for residents. And you try to keep this balance. There are two kinds of tax balances you try to keep. One is the balance between what the government's taking from the citizenry, but also then you look at the balance at the way government distributes the whole pie that they have, and you don't want that to get out of balance. Affordable housing can be very tricky. I think it was a State of the City address just in 2013 when the mayor declared the previous affordable housing initiative a total bust. In Loveland, it's been a struggle there as well. And the problem is a lot of times if the affordable housing is an actual purchase situation, those people then can't resell with any gained equity, so they don't really gain anything. If it's an apartment situation, a lot of times you end up creating just sort of projects by some other name. So affordable housing is really tricky. I'd urge the city of Denver to go back to the legislature, keep working on a construction defects bill that maybe is just centered on Denver. That's not a statewide fix. That gives the city some flexibility to try some really creative things with the insurance industry.
Eric, it's an interesting approach that Todd brings up. Do you think Mayor Hancock's up for that creativity, I guess, to approach this kind of problem?
We'll see about that. I think Patty was dead on here. I mean, there's a long track record in Denver of tax increases passing. John Hickenlooper as mayor had the golden touch with it. I've commented around this table in years gone by that Denver is so liberal. I think there's an attitude that the more you tax yourself, the closer to God you are. I think we're going to test that theory here over the next couple of years, if not this November, then in some succeeding Novembers. The mayor has a very ambitious agenda, starting with the stock show, which is not a small ticket item. There's the DIA issue on the ballot, which doesn't have a tax attached to it, but it's still a $10 million check that they're proposing that the taxpayers of Denver write. And now this scholarship program, which has a lot of merits, but as Todd pointed out, the Denver Post editorial, I thought that was right on the mark in terms of what is the cumulative impact here. Individually, a lot of these things make sense. What's the cumulative impact? And if you get by 2015, then in 2016, Denver Public Schools is probably teed up for a tax issue. The SCFD is going back to the voters. There's a long line, year after year. There's a long queue of these tax proposals. And voters strike me, as Patty articulated, in a cranky mood right now. We saw that in the municipal elections. with what happened in the auditor's race, with a number of city council races, and I think Michael Hancock was benefited by not having any opponent in that race. Voters are in a cranky mood, and we'll see if their appetite for taxes is truly limitless.
Natasha, do you think Mayor Hancock's going to have to pick some priorities? And there's some, as Eric rattled them off, there's some pretty big ticket items. Any one of them a good heavy lift. If you have 2 or 3 more of those, at some point you have to kind of pick and choose. What do you think?
Well, I think that's one thing that distinguished this speech from some of his previous State of the City speeches, because the grand plans weren't there as much as they have been in the past, and that's because he has so many balls in the air right now. And some of those are coming to fruition, and we're seeing development, we're seeing things change around the city. But with so much up in the air, I think people are still having that question of, okay, well, what about my potholes? What about things that are going around in my neighborhood? And in fact, one of the most poignant moments of his speech that got the most applause, or some of the most applause, was when he talked about fixing the traffic light timing on Colorado, which is such a simple thing. And it was, for me, just a moment of, well, that's your mood, Mr. Mayor. That's what people in the city care about right now. So even as he's thinking about these big picture things, the type of things that might have a name on it, let's also focus on the small things that would really impact daily people's lives.
The mayor careers are riddled with that. You have Mayor Nichols really losing his job from snowplows, nothing about a building. And I still remember John Hickenlooper's most brilliant campaign at being at parking meters. People respond to what's going to impact their everyday life. It's a good point.